Right, I'm strong. This video is an accompaniment of sorts to a scouting report I produced on AHQ Esports Club ahead of the 2016 League of Legends World Championships to be held in September-October of this year, 2016. Links in the description. If it's something that you think would pique your interest, I'd encourage you to give it a look. This video isn't really a recap or a summary of the report of any sort. It's more of a discussion about a few of the points I came across while researching, while putting data together, while looking back over the data that interested me about AHQ, about the way they play, about some of their players, that there wasn't really the capacity to talk about in the report because of its format and so on. So let's get right into it. The first one is the adaptation of AHQ's level 1. Now 6.15 brought a lot of changes at the pro level. One of these was to shake up level 1s a bit, so there was a setup that emerged as the vanilla standard high level strat. That was you put 4 wards down, 1 over every entrance to your jungle. You fall back from there, you do what swapping around you want to do, varying up the obviously lanes, but the lane swap was still a thing early on. Each different jungle starts you want to do. You can see that set up here from Hong Kong Esports on the red side. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 wards down there on the minimap. But then look how AHQ on the blue side in this game have only put 2 wards down. They put 1 over the bottom entrance, 1 over the top entrance, none in the middle. It's a very minimalist approach, but without the inherent threat of the lane swap and creating a mismatch on the invade, they can afford to be a bit more frugal with their warding and just ward prevent 2v2s on the first outer camp basically, because there's not much threat of a late invade up top side. Now, it's a nice little adaptation to the standard game state that emerges post 6.15. It's also something that, if they continue it, could easily be punished by World's team, because once teams start scripting more detailed, I don't think the word elaborate applies, but possibly elaborate I suppose, invades with consideration to fail safe through an undermanned bot lane, there's a danger that sort of start is going to be exploited, so that's something they need to be concerned about. Point 2 relates to AN, the AHQ ADC. Now, LMS has, I think it's fair to say, a reputation at the moment for being a pretty weak region for AD carries. And for AN in particular, perception is relatively negative. He was at 2015 Worlds of AHQ, he had a pretty modest showing. He was actually arguably outshone by NL of Flash Wolves, the other LMS team, again going to Worlds this year. And NL received all sorts of criticism from the community, so for AN to be perceived as worse as that, obviously not a great thing. And it's one of the reasons why people are very negative on AHQ's chances this year, because 2v2 bot lanes, the importance has become a lot more significant and people don't really believe in AN as a player. So in that regard, his performance stats are a little interesting. Compared to the LMS average, he comes out pretty favourably, and the big thing that stands out is an above average CS difference at 10, gold difference per 10 on every champ he's played the split, bar for Jhin on the latter point. And the shining feature is the exceptional stats in the former case for Ezreal, who is known to be probably one of the weakest, I'd say the weakest meta laning ADC right now, and his ridiculous damage per minute. Like, by way of comparison, if he maintained that DPM among all Ezreal players in LCK, the Korean League, he would be 3rd ahead of Kramer, who was previously on Flash Wolves, incidentally. So, is he actually good? I think the Ezreal damage stats, they are significant, but apart from that, it's a bit of trepidation for me, and I think points more to a very consistent pattern from AHQ in terms of their early gameplay and their tendency towards pressuring with bots in terms of wave control, which actually brings me nicely on to the third thing I want to talk about, which is Ziv. Now, Ziv is recognised as the best player in AHQ and a world-class top laner. I tend to agree with both those assertions. But his laning stats are actually surprisingly poor. You see he's got quite relatively, against other LMS top laners, he's got pretty poor CS per 10, pretty poor gold difference at 10. For a player who then does put up huge damage stats, as you can see, and does take a huge share of the team's gold, that's quite surprising, right? And the plot further thickens if you look at the early objective data, because you notice a pronounced tendency for HQ to take bottom tower before top. There's a lot of games in that sample where top tower doesn't get taken at all, and they also have exceptionally low Herald priority. They get it out of 3 out of 14 games, and this is in spite of the fact Ziv is usually finding himself in these games on an Echo, a Nara, game playing champions who could benefit quite significantly from having Herald. I don't believe that's because Ziv can't play an up-tempo laning style of anything of that sort, but rather, with the rest of his team, that's actually not their path to victory in most games. Because of Westdoor, and to a lesser extent Malzahar and Ziv himself's champion preferences, a static top side of the map actually works extremely well for them. Their route to victory in most games comes directly from drawing pressure away from bot, letting them push up, and finding 2v2 and 3v skirmishes on the top side as often as they're about to hit their power spikes. Think Trinity Force on Echo, or Gangplank. Think Lichbane on Twisted Fate. Think Hextech Protobelt on Lissandra. It's a situation that, in terms of their drafts, they're equipped for to fight most of the time, in terms of the champions they've got, in terms of the matchups they've got, and in terms of the talents, it's something that they have all the time. These are players who are extremely strong at skirmishing. Ziv, Westdoor, Mountain, all skirmish-oriented players. Works very well for them. In many ways, Ziv is actually the perfect top laner for Westdoor. Exactly because he's a good player, he's a very good player, but he's not the traditional lane-dominant, split-pushing top. Name MacNoon comes to mind for whatever reason that might be, but that sort of player. He's a player who wants to be involved in that sort of skirmish action, and that works well with Westdoor because it helps in terms of how they want to fight, how they want to transition to the mid game, and it does free up some space later on for Westdoor's more split-oriented picks. Which brings us on to the last point about Westdoor. In theory, 6.15 should be great for Westdoor, because we know what he's all about. He's about the Twisted Fate, the Fizz, the Zed, these roaming assassins or pseudo-assassins. So to hell with traditional mid laning, just look to make chaos thrive in the chaos. Like, this is a bit cliche, it's a bit simplistic, but you know what I'm saying, this is the sort of player that Westdoor is, and we know this. Now, his TF, still destructive. If teams are at all smart, they ban it every single game. The rest of his arsenal, not so sure. There's still too much utility and denial in most compositions to make assassins work in general. And for his most famous pick, the Fizz, he can't clear quickly enough against the likes of a Malzahar, a Cassiopeia, a Victor. Against the former two particularly, he has serious problems in terms of just the micro interactions of skirmishing. And we're just naming some of the less roamy mids here, like if he goes up against something like an Aurelion Soul, he just can't keep up. He can't have game impact on these picks when he needs to have game impact, in spite of what you would generally think in terms of the meta shifting away from that mid lane being important towards the side lanes. If Westdoor's to have an impact to Worlds, it's probably going to be on the back of, I would say, Ryze perhaps. He's been spamming it expeditiously in solo queue, or Yasuo, which he has been spamming expeditiously in 1v1s versus Albis. But what should have been a great set of changes for him personally, in terms of 6.15, in terms of the way it's changed the game in competitive Lesser, on early returns, it actually doesn't look like it's going to pay him and therefore HQ really huge dividends, which is surprising, but it's one of those ways that these things can shake out. So that's the video. Again, document itself is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I am strong.